The great hall of stars shimmered with artificial starlight, its dome ceiling a perfect illusion of an open sky, deep black, flecked with drifting nebulae and phantom moons. Underneath, the Galactic Council of Sovereign Systems had gathered in its ceremonial formation, concentric circles of towering, gilded thrones, each belonging to a different species that had clawed its way into relevance across the millennia. Some floated, some pulsed, others shimmered with bioluminescence or radiated an oily musk. But all watched the same center stage where the humans, always late, had not yet arrived. The Vrook High Chancellor scratched at his chitinous cheekplate and clicked his mandibles. Delays again. Perhaps the mammals have lost their map. Laughter rippled like static among the outer species. Even the old lichen-draped Wutheri cracked a brittle smile. Few respected Earth. Fewer feared it. It was a backwater speck that had crawled into the galaxy with naive optimism and suspiciously tidy language. They are a species that drinks hot bean water and calls a strategy, grunted Thulzera, a scaled war priest from the Vesker Dominion. Always smiling, always offering snacks. It is unsettling. Then, without fanfare, the human delegate arrived. A single woman walked onto the platform, flanked by no guards, no advisors. Just her, tall, deliberate, unarmed. She wore a dark blue diplomatic uniform stitched with silver threads, simple and unthreatening, save for the subtle shimmer of the Earth insignia. A laurel wreath encircling a lone chess piece. The Queen. The chamber hushed, more out of confusion than respect. Clarissa Vega paused at the center, then slowly looked up at the council, as if sizing up a classroom of unruly children. Her face was open and kind, framed by waves of dark air. Her voice, when it came, was warm honey. Esteemed leaders of the galaxy, I bring greetings from Earth, and apologies for our delay. We were caught in traffic. Apparently, the star lanes are full of warships. A beat. Then a few alien snorts, a cough. Amused or annoyed, it was hard to tell. Clarissa folded her hands at her waist and waited. Not rushed, not flustered, merely patient. That, too, was unsettling. Let the human speak, said a mechanical voice. High Chancellor Zier of the Mecha Corps had finally stirred. His crystalline eye rotated once. Let her offer her excuse. Clarissa nodded graciously. We were invited here to discuss the recent acts of aggression along the Mid-Orion corridor. Several species, including humans, have reported unexplained military maneuvers and fleet buildups by the Central Hegemony. Earth came to propose de-escalation. Thulzara growled. Earth should propose silence. You are barely 3 decades out of your own gravity well. A soft laugh escaped her lips. Indeed. And yet, we noticed you painting targets before you ever fired a shot. From one of the higher tiers, the Galactic King stood, or rather, unfolded. King Zitharon of the Oryx Ascendancy was a creature of impossible symmetry, 7 eyes spiraling outward from a radiant helm of bone and light. His voice dripped from every wall at once. De-escalation? You are insects in borrowed boots. Your kind builds fire, then fears its own warmth. Clarissa tilted her head. Better to fear warmth than worship flame. Earth does not seek war. You mistake us, Zitharon said, a faint curl in his tone. We do not seek war either. We simply do not fear it. And there it was, the break in the sky. The mood in the chamber shifted, like cold air before thunder. Beneath the formal words, the truth had emerged. The hegemony wanted war, and the council was divided on whether to let it happen. Clarissa stepped forward, her boots clicking softly on the obsidian floor. Then, I suppose Earth has a question. Zitharon's 7 eyes swiveled toward her, curious. What do you intend to do? She said softly, when the species you underestimated has already predicted your every move. Silence. From a corner, a wiry creature from the Sioux then Clade hissed. Empty threat. Posturing. Humans are too sentimental to kill efficiently. Are we? Clarissa asked, her voice still smooth. We taught our children to play chess before they could spell. We write novels about war, laugh at death in our comedies, and mourn villains as much as heroes. Do you know why, friends? The chamber didn't breathe. She smiled, not wide, not smug, just enough to wrinkle the corner of her eyes. Because we don't fear complexity. We don't run from contradiction. We train our minds to think 10 moves ahead, and we do it over breakfast. Then where are your ships? Zir snapped. Where is your threat? Where is your courage? Clarissa turned slightly and gestured upward. Above the council chamber, the artificial stars flickered, then shifted. A section of the night sky rearranged into human text, subtle and silent. Stand by. A hush fell over the room. Every species stared. Not at the message. At Clarissa. Because the moment it appeared, she didn't even glance upward. She already knew it would be there. The king's voice sliced the silence. You dare threaten us here? In this chamber? Clarissa's answer was a question. Is it still a threat if it's already too late? Zir clanked forward. Explain yourself. But she didn't. Not yet. Instead, she walked to a small pedestal and pulled from her coat a gift, an earth artifact. A snow globe. Inside, a miniature volcano under glass, eternally frozen mid-eruption. She placed it gently on the dais. We brought this, she said, as a symbol of our restraint. Zitharon laughed, a sound like mirrored glass breaking underwater. You think such trinkets will save you? No, Clarissa said. We think they might warn you. Attention laced the chamber now, not just from her words, but her poise. She wasn't pleading. She wasn't begging. She was calm. Too calm. Enough theatrics, Felzara barked. Bring the motion to vote. Earth's insolence must be punished. Clarissa didn't flinch. Zir's crystalline iris spun rapidly. Do you have anything else to say before this council decide your fate? She thought for a moment. Then only this. The chamber lights dimmed. Every alien looked upward again. The starfield above them now read. Phase 1 complete. Zitharon surged forward, rage beginning to hum from his body like a solar engine. What have you done? Clarissa turned her eyes to him, and for the first time, her voice sharpened, only slightly, but enough to feel it like a needle through silk. We studied your kind, memorized your speech rhythms. We watched the way your guards blinked when bored. We learned what spices you find intoxicating and laced them into every ceremonial meal for the last 5 years. She paused. We also learned that the Oryx ascendancy has 2 hearts. Zitharon froze. Clarissa looked to her left, where a silent human aide, dressed like a junior observer, stood with his hands behind his back. He met her eyes, then nodded once. Earth was invited to a diplomatic dinner, Clarissa said gently. But we brought the recipe. At that moment, a faint pulse surged through the floor. The walls trembled, not violently, but with a gentle pressure of distance closing. Zir's system's word. There are no warships detected. They're not in this system, Clarissa said. Not yet. But they're coming. Or rather, you came to them. Felzara's nostrils flared. You lured the council here. No, she said. You lured yourselves. We simply made sure the table was set. Then, without raising her voice, Clarissa Vega, the soft-spoken human envoy, spoke 6 words into the chamber that would be remembered for centuries. Check the gravity signature of this moon. Dozens of alien advisors scrambled at once, devices chiming. Sensors flared. Readings shifted. And the last thing heard in the council chamber before the alarms began was Zir's cold, metallic whisper. This isn't a moon. It's a ship. Clarissa Vega smiled kindly and waited. The alarms didn't scream. They sighed. That was the first warning, that human-engineered sound. It wasn't urgent in pitch, but inevitable in tone. A slow, blooming hum that expanded across the chamber like a tide creeping across glass. Aliens turned toward their interfaces, talons and tendrils tapping frantically, pupils widening or narrowing depending on species. The diagnostic screens blinked their confirmations in thousands of scripts. Gravitational inconsistency, core anomaly, mass shift drift detected. The Galactic Council had not convened on a moon. They were standing atop a cloaked warship the size of a continent. Clarissa Vega didn't move. She stood with her hands folded, head slightly bowed, as if listening to something only she could hear. Behind her, the junior aide who had nodded earlier took a half step back and pressed a thin strip of metal behind his ear. He said nothing. Neither did she. "Explain this treachery," roared Thulzara, his obsidian jaw flaring open. "What vessel is this?" Clarissa's gaze didn't waver. "It's called the Midsummer, a mobile diplomatic platform. And, depending on your decision today, possibly a tomb." Gasps rippled through the chamber like water disturbed by a dropped stone. Even the mechacore, beings of logic and precision, stilled. Zir's crystalline limbs locked in place. "The platform is shielded. How did it pass scans?" "It didn't," Clarissa said. "You scanned for threats. We disguised it as hospitality." A flicker passed across the faces of the council, not understanding, but something colder. Recognition, the kind that arrives too late to prevent loss. "We are here for peace," Clarissa continued, her voice velvet and composed. "But Earth believes peace is not an argument, it is a position. One we have prepared for in depth." Zitharon's 7 eyes narrowed in sequence, like petals curling against wind. "You're bluffing. You wouldn't risk the entire council's lives on theatrics." Clarissa turned slowly toward him. "King Zitharon, your fleets have occupied 3 neutral systems this quarter. You've deployed stealth drones within planetary orbits, and your merchant treaties contain embedded code to scramble civilian NAV data. What would you call that diplomacy?" The king's glow pulsed. "Balance of power." "No," she said softly. "That's the language of cornered beasts." Another pause. Then came a dry chuckle from Arir, a brittle sound like old paper catching fire. The voice belonged to the Wutheri elder, one of the few beings in the chamber older than the war strategies being argued over. His fungal beard shook with each wheezing laugh. "You fools," he rasped, spore-flecked breath curling in the cold light. "They gave you everything you needed to see them. You just didn't want to look." Zitharon's voice dripped with contempt. "And what wisdom do the rot-born offer today?" "Only this," the elder said, eyes glowing dimly. "Humans are not diplomats. They are actors. And the role they play best is prey." Clarissa inclined her head gently, as if to thank him. The mechacore began whispering across radio frequency, audible only to those with internal receptors. "Human vessels detected outside system range. Estimated to breach proximity zone in 17 minutes. 17, Clarissa echoed. Just enough time for clarity. She stepped closer to the pedestal where the snow globe rested. The miniature volcano inside flickered as gravity shifted subtly underfoot, imperceptible to most species, but not to her. A ship that size had begun to awaken. "This isn't just about Earth," she said. "We are not here because we are insulted. We are here because we believe the galactic system has allowed predators to wrap themselves in protocol." She reached out and tapped the globe lightly. The ash inside swirled. "We decided to wrap ourselves in protocol too." Zir's voice sliced through the quiet. "Then why bother with diplomacy at all?" Clarissa turned. "Because the galaxy watches, and they must see the choice you make." Her words weren't rhetorical. Screens across the chamber flickered to life, revealing thousands of open broadcasts. Civilizations watching, distant sectors tuned in. Even human colonies far beyond Sol receiving the feed, deliberately decrypted by Earth's government only seconds earlier. It wasn't just the council chamber that stood on the midsummer. It was history itself. "You want war?" she asked the room. "Then declare it now, on record, before every soul watching." No one spoke. For the first time in decades, the council was quiet. Then came a movement from the Vesker tier. Thulzara stood tall, raising one scaled hand and bellowing, "I vote to strike Earth from a council. Let their pretenses burn." The king followed. The Oryx ascendancy concurs. One by one, factions began to weigh in. Some, like the Sithari and Eganites, called for negotiation, terrified by what Earth had revealed. Others demanded aggression, already too deep in pride to turn back. The vote was nearly even. Then Clarissa did something unexpected. She smiled, not a smile of mockery, but of affection, of sorrow. "I remember when Earth was new to this chamber," she said. We brought tea. We tried to understand your languages. We asked foolish questions. You laughed. She stepped forward, voice quiet. But do you remember what happened after that? The screens changed. Now showing footage, archival, stark, undeniable. A small Earth vessel, surrounded by pirates. Outnumbered, outgunned. The pirates fired first. The Earth ship didn't dodge. It absorbed. Moments later, that same ship vaporized the pirate armada in less than 4 seconds with a concentric shockwave of unknown tech. Another feed. Another time. An Earth diplomat poisoned at a summit. He died smiling. The next week, the poisoning species' entire espionage network vanished from known space. No evidence. No retaliation claimed. Just absence. A final feed. A human child at a trade school in a neutral sector. Bullied. Isolated. Quiet. He returned 5 years later as the chief architect of a security grid that now guarded 27 systems, including the homeworlds of his former bullies. The feed stopped. Clarissa spoke again, voice low and steady. You never noticed. You never remembered. That's okay. We did. The council chamber felt smaller now. Zir's optics dimmed slightly. What do you want from us? Clarissa looked toward him, not with disdain, but understanding. A choice. Her aide stepped forward now. He held a simple datapad and laid it on the pedestal. 2 options, she said. Sign the Treaty of Accountability, relinquishing control of border systems until oversight can be arranged. Zitharon roared, treason. Or face a full blockade, she finished calmly. Not as punishment, as protection. From yourselves. The Wutheri elder laughed again, hollow and knowing. The lions bark, but it's the sheepdogs that encircle them now. Zir hesitated. For the first time in his centuries of service, he said nothing. Then came a sound none expected. Clapping. Slow, measured clapping. It echoed from the chamber's highest tier, where no species had been registered this cycle. A human figure descended the stairs. Pale coat. Silver gloves. Smiling like a man who just finished writing the final page of a novel everyone else was still reading. Council members gasped. Even Clarissa's eyes flicked with restrained surprise. He stopped 3 steps from the floor. Director Hale, Clarissa said quietly. He bowed his head. I apologize for the interruption. I was simply admiring the monologue. Zitharon snarled. Who are you? Hale's grin widened. Insurance. He turned to Clarissa. The fleet's in position. Shall I give them a message? Clarissa didn't blink. Not yet. Zir finally spoke, voice hollow. If we agree, if we sign, what happens? Clarissa's tone was featherlight. Then we go home. And if we don't? She looked up. The starfield above shifted once more. Phase 2 ready. Clarissa Vega met each eye, organic, synthetic, or otherwise, and gave the smallest of nods. Then, gently, she pressed her finger to the snow globe. The volcano inside erupted. Just glass. Just snow. But no one in the room breathed. The silence in the great hall was a paradox, dense with tension, but eerily calm, as if the whole chamber were holding its breath in anticipation of something unspeakable. Beneath the starlit illusion of the ceiling, beneath the frozen ash in the snow globe, beneath Clarissa Vega's gently folded hands, a storm had already begun to churn. Her smile remained unchanged. Small, polite, unnerving. Council members shifted uneasily in their thrones. A few began to whisper in encrypted frequencies, their translators skipping as panic corrupted protocol. Zir's mechanical limbs trembled microscopically. Thulzara reached for the hilt of his ceremonial blade, then hesitated, sensing too late that ceremony was already obsolete. Clarissa glanced at the datapad beside the snow globe. It blinked twice in pale blue. Final vote pending. She let out a slow, soft breath, measured, maternal, almost. We still believe in peace, she said gently, but only if you believe in consequences. That's when Zitharon moved. The Oryx King surged from his dais, a blur of radiant limbs and vibrating fury. In a motion too fast for most eyes, he covered the distance between his throne and the central pedestal, casting aside ornate chairs and scattering delegates like leaves in a storm. His 7 eyes flared with a color language no human could parse. But Clarissa didn't flinch. "You dare," he spat, voice a prismatic scream, "to make demands of the ascendancy." His hands ignited with kinetic force, 2 spirals of energy winding into coiled destruction. Clarissa tilted her head. "I don't make demands," she said. She stepped aside. Zitharon's blow struck the pedestal where the snow globe had rested, except now it was gone, tucked back into Clarissa's palm. The impact exploded the platform into fragments, throwing sparks and shards across the marble floor. Stone cracked beneath the blast. The data pad disintegrated. But Clarissa was already moving. Not running. Not dodging. Gliding. She pivoted, slipped behind him as if drawn by gravity itself, and with a single seamless motion, reached into her right boot. The blade gleamed, a thin, curved instrument, dull-colored, nearly invisible, until it kissed the light. A traditional human blade. No energy. No pulse tech. Just forged metal. Simple. Silent. Certain. In one fluid sweep, she drove it beneath Zitharon's 3rd rib on the left side. Gasps echoed like gunshots. The king stopped mid-turn. He looked down, stunned, as the blade vanished into him like a whisper into cloth. His energy shimmer faltered. He opened his mouth, but no sound came. Just a light chime, like glass humming in wind. Clarissa leaned in close, her voice low enough to be almost tender. 2 hearts. The left one feeds the rage. That's the one I needed to stop. She pulled the blade out, slow and clean. Zitharon staggered back, clutching at the wound. No blood flowed. His species didn't bleed in the conventional sense. But the flicker in his glow was unmistakable. His power began to collapse inward like a dying star. Security drones deployed at once, gleaming spheres with spinning spikes and humming cores. Half turned toward Clarissa. The other half hesitated, targeting no one, spinning like bees without a queen. Then, around the chamber, humans stood. They emerged not from behind weapons, but from behind roles. The interpreter, the steward, the junior legal clerk. Each revealed what had been hidden in plain sight, not weapons, but posture, stance, readiness. Earth had not brought soldiers. They had brought choreographers of violence. Director Hale descended the final step, his coat flaring faintly behind him. "Well," he said with a sigh, "she drew first blood." Finally. Thulzara howled, rushing the platform. His blade struck the air where Clarissa had been, but her shadow had already turned into motion. She stepped aside with the grace of rain gliding off a leaf, twisted his arm behind him, and dropped him with one practiced sweep of her boot behind his heel. He slammed to the floor, groaning. "Humans are soft," he growled through his broken jaw. Clarissa crouched. "That's the trick. We bruise easily, but that doesn't mean we break." Zir's voice trembled now. "You planned this?" "We trained for it," Hale replied. "Every council cycle, every exchange, every moment you thought you were watching us fumble through your customs, we were mapping your weaknesses." Above them, the starfield blinked again. Phase 3 activated. Across the galaxy, ships uncloaked, silent, efficient, orbitally perfect. They did not fire. They surrounded. Planetary defense systems detected them, attempted to lock on, and promptly shut down from within. Earth had embedded malware years ago, disguised in shared medical databases, cultural archives, even children's games. The virus didn't destroy, it repurposed. Clarissa rose slowly, eyes sweeping the chamber. Her tone had changed now, still calm, but colder. A judge collecting herself before sentencing. "We were asked to evolve," she said. "So we did. But evolution favors not just the strong, it favors the strategic. And Earth has always known one truth better than any of you." She turned to face the trembling council. "In a room full of lions, it's the sheepdog you don't see coming." Somewhere, a member of the Sithri delegation, a childlike being with translucent wings, whimpered. What happens now?" Clarissa met her eyes. "Nothing, if you choose it." Director Hale tapped a small device on his wrist. The floor of the chamber shimmered, and a holographic projection unfolded above them. The signed treaty of accountability, pre-drafted and pre-approved by allied neutral systems, time-stamped days before the council was even called. You'll notice it only takes 6 signatures, Hale said, gesturing to the highlighted sections. We already have 5. Clarissa stepped forward. This is your moment to be wise. We will not take your planets. We will not burn your archives. We will not destroy your traditions. She paused. Unless you force us to. One of the delegates, a serpentine creature with pale green scales, slithered forward and extended a trembling digit toward the hologram. The interface blinked. 6th signature, received. For a moment, the chamber felt like the moment after thunder. The seconds of raw, open air where the world hasn't decided if it's safe again. Clarissa nodded once. Her aide stepped back. Hale folded his arms. Around the chamber, the human operatives began to relax, some even offering half-smiles to stunned alien officials. But the Oryx King was not yet dead. He staggered to his feet, wheezing with fractured grace, eyes blazing with the last flicker of power. You think this is peace, he rasped. This is surrender under threat. This is coercion. Clarissa faced him. No, she said. This is mercy. Zitharon raised one trembling hand, began to charge a final blast, and stopped. Not because someone fired, but because he heard a sound. A child's voice. It came over the council's broadcast channels. A recorded transmission. A human boy, maybe 8 years old. Hi. My name's Gabriel. I live on Mars. My mom says if there's ever a war, I should hide under the greenhouse because it's deep and has soil and stuff. But I don't want to hide. I just want the stars to be quiet. The audio clicked off. Clarissa didn't blink. That's why we built the Midsummer. Not to fight you. To keep that child from needing to become us. The king fell to his knees. The chamber held its breath again. And above them, the stars shifted once more. Phase 3 completed. Clarissa turned to Hale. We begin negotiations tomorrow. Then, without another word, she slid the blood-slicked blade back into her boot. The Midsummer moved. Not through space in the traditional sense, but inward, downward, folding into its own mass with precision no alien race had yet dared imitate. Beneath the great hall of stars, its engines reconfigured themselves into silence. There was no rumble, no pulse, just an elegant stillness, as if the ship itself were listening. The council chamber remained suspended in tense quiet, lit now only by the ghostly shimmer of the stars above and the pale glow of the treaty hologram that still hung in midair. Clarissa Vega stood motionless at the center of the room, her blade once again tucked away, her shoulders relaxed as though she had merely delivered a speech instead of drawing blood before the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Every thread of her uniform lay perfectly in place. Her hair had not moved. There was not a smudge of sweat on her brow. Around her, the alien delegates sat slumped or stunned. Some cradled wounds, not physical, but ideological. Pride punctured. Assumptions shattered. The mechacore twitched in thought loop subroutines. The Wutheri elder stared at the floor like it had whispered a prophecy, only he could hear. Even Thulzura, held firmly in the grip of 2 human operatives in unmarked armor, had gone quiet. Director Hale, ever unhurried, stepped forward at last. His coat swayed with ghostly elegance, and he studied the room as if appraising an old theater after final curtain. Well, he said, voice warm with mock regret, I suppose this is the part where you ask us how long we've been planning it. Zitharon didn't rise. He couldn't. The wound Clarissa delivered had destabilized his left heart. He sat against the far column, slumped but still breathing, flickering faintly like a lantern near its last oil. His voice was thinner now, stripped of its usual vibrato. How long? Clarissa didn't smile this time. Instead, she looked down at the snow globe in her hand, now quiet, the tiny volcano at rest. She lifted it slightly, letting the soft light pass through the glass. 42 years, she said. The moment we joined this council, we knew. Joined, Zir repeated, his crystalline voice a notch lower than usual. Or infiltrated? Both, Hale replied. We're efficient that way. You prepared for war that long ago, murmured a frail voice from the Scythenian cloud pod, barely audible beneath the chamber's breathless stillness. Clarissa turned to face it. We didn't prepare for war. We prepared for you. The words didn't carry venom. They carried truth, quiet, heavy, inevitable. Every trade agreement, Hale added, walking a slow arc behind her, was a blueprint test. Every peace summit, a psychological profile. Every cultural exchange, a sensor map disguised as curiosity. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. You think we were cataloging your worlds? Clarissa asked. We were cataloging your weaknesses. Which of you responds to pressure? Which of you lies under stress? Which of you listens? And which of you never would? Zithron looked up slowly. You played the long game, while pretending you didn't even understand the rules. Clarissa nodded. It's how we've always survived. Not by being the biggest beast in the forest, but by convincing the beasts we were just birds. And what now? Fulzara spat. You've trapped us. Congratulations. You think this gives you control? Clarissa knelt beside him, her voice barely above a whisper. We don't want control. He laughed, a sharp, ragged thing. We want proof, she said, that you're willing to let go of the illusion that power must always come from teeth and flame. And if we don't? Zir asked. Hale's smile returned, brittle and cold. Then we light the forest. A command passed silently between them, one blink, one nod. On cue, the holograms changed. Above them, dozens of screens lit up with feeds from across the galaxy. They didn't show war. They showed surrender. Not forced. Voluntary. Ships powering down. Fleets retreating from disputed sectors. Alien citizens watching in awe as their own leaders, once proud conquerors, signed off on withdrawal orders, dictated not by fear, but by the sobering realization that Earth had taken 1,000 insults and returned not one. Until now. We broadcasted this session, Hale said, gesturing to the feeds. The galaxy saw what happened here, what choices were offered, and what responses were made. Some of your own citizens, Clarissa added, are calling for resignations. Others are celebrating. You no longer speak alone. The chamber grew colder. A delegate from the Laverian Isles, who had not spoken all session, leaned forward. Why not destroy us outright? You've proven you can. Clarissa paused, then walked to the very center of the hall. Because fear builds nothing, she said. It only delays collapse. She looked around, eyes meeting each species in turn. You built empires on the assumption that silence meant weakness, that smiles meant surrender, that humans were just clumsy dreamers asking for a place at your table. She looked up at the starfield above, where Earth's fleet now circled peacefully, unfired, unprovoked. What you never understood is that we already had a table. We just made room for you. One by one, alien eyes dropped. The Wutheri elder finally stirred. So what is it you ask of us now? Clarissa's voice softened. That you choose dignity over dominance. The elder chuckled. You should know by now, dignity is not a common currency among kings. No, she said, but it is a contagious one. A long silence followed. Then motion. Zir raised a hand. The Mechacore Council interface lit beneath his fingertips. I will sign, he said. Not because I fear you, but because I understand you now. And that frightens me more than any warship. Others followed. Fulzara said nothing, but nodded, even as blood dried at the edge of his cracked mouth. The Laverian delegate floated forward, pressed an orb to the document. One by one they agreed. And when the final confirmation blinked into existence, the hologram shifted to its last phase, treaty enacted. All parties accounted. No fireworks. No victory bells. Just stillness. Clarissa exhaled slowly, for the first time looking tired. Director Hale approached her and murmured, I'll begin preparations for withdrawal. Not yet, she replied, without turning. We need to give them something to believe in. More than just silence. He gave a small bow. Suggestions. Clarissa thought, then walked to the shattered pedestal where the snow globe had first rested. She crouched, picked up one of its fragments, and held it between her fingers, a sliver of curved glass, catching the stars in its arc. She raised it. Let this be archived, she said. A piece of what we didn't break. A reminder that power held back is power refined. Hale's smile this time was faint, but genuine. Behind them, the alien council slowly began to rise from their thrones. Not as rulers, but as something new. Across the galaxy, broadcasts shifted. Schools taught revised maps. Citizens saw their leaders bow. Human ships peeled back from the rim worlds, not with a roar, but with a whisper of trust. History didn't mark the moment as an invasion. It marked it as alignment. But one final act remained. Clarissa turned to Zithron, still conscious, barely. She knelt beside him again, and he looked at her, not with hate, but with a broken sort of awe. You could have killed me, he rasped. I did, she said gently. The part of you that ruled through fear. The rest is up to you. He coughed a short laugh. You think your mercy will make me grateful? No, she said. I think it will make you honest. She stood. That's enough. From her wrist, she triggered the final sequence. The midsummer began to lift, slowly ascending from the system's gravitational well. Alien fleets were given clearance codes, one by one. No fire was exchanged. No resistance came. And far away, in a dusty colony on Mars, a young boy named Gabriel stepped out from beneath the greenhouse and looked up at the stars, wondering why they felt quieter now. In the chamber, the last of the holograms faded. Clarissa Vega walked toward the exit, her boots clicking in the echo of victory, not won through violence, but through precision. As the doors closed behind her, Director Hale lingered one last moment, staring at the chamber. We didn't win, he murmured to no one in particular. We remembered who we were. Then he followed her out, and above them, among stars that no longer needed to burn, the words quietly pulsed. End transmission.